Gibraltar is very likely one of the hardest characters to play effectively in Apex Legends. Let's take a look at some of the fundamentals you'll need to be successful with him, but more than that, let's just have a frank discussion about him. I don't feel that he's in a very good place right now, so I'm not going to call this video a guide. Think of it simply as a discussion with tips thrown in, and by discussion, I mean me talking about why he sucks, how to do things with him despite him sucking, and respawn please fix. Straight out of the gate, you should know that Gibraltar has the biggest hitbox in the game alongside Pathfinder and Caustic. Your tactical ability, Dome of Protection, is going to force a lot of close-range engagements, making it incredibly difficult to survive in the current metagame of Peacekeepers, Wingman Pistols, and R99s. All three of these weapons excel at ranges you'll realistically be fighting people from, and expect high-level players to always be carrying at least one of these weapons. Maybe even a Mastiff too, that'll also ruin your day. Expect to take a lot of beating with this legend, but not have the health pool to actually tank damage. Expect to die a lot, and versus high-level players, be more of a liability than a benefit. Your passive ability, Gun Shield, is fairly weak and forces you into aiming down sights at all times, whether you want to or not. If you want the shield, you must be ADSing. This passive doesn't work at all if you don't have a gun, which I suppose is appropriate given the name, but in practice is very unfavorable for Gibraltar. This might be an oversight or an attempt to make the character less complicated, but either way, I'm dissatisfied. Being able to use the aim down sights button to activate the shield even without a gun would be a minor but very appreciated buff to the character. Gun Shield is one of the major things that makes Gibraltar unique. It's thematic of his character, and ought to be a reason to pick him, but simply does not offer the protection it needs in its current state to make the character truly stand out. The ability itself, the actual shield, is also really bright. It emanates a lot of light. It's easy to see from across the map. It makes you stand out against whatever terrain that you might be in. The ability is so easy to see that the developers had to add an extra character-exclusive keybind to toggle it off in case you wanted to be stealthy as big, gigantic tank man. I think this is silly, and I've never once toggled the shield on or off willingly in a fight or out of one to any sort of effect at all, but there you go. It's a thing that you can do if you really wanted to play with it. Now, with all these stars and asterisks and buts out of the way, let's talk about what we can do with this passive. Well, it's a few extra hit points on a shortish cooldown, and it's useful when making fast peeks around corners or in and out of your dome shield. In long-range fights, you can expect this ability to recharge multiple times, adding up to a few extra 100 points of damage absorbed per engagement. This is significant, and means you're going to be spending that much more time fighting than you are stopping to heal in between shots, so there is some benefit to it. It's not all terrible. Gun Shield legitimately rewards deliberate and calculated play, and when you memorize how much punishment that it can take and how long it takes to recharge, you can start hitting a decent cadence that lets him be mildly more comfortable taking engagements than other legends might be. To reiterate though, it's important that you're incredibly deliberate in your Gibraltar play. There is a long delay between aiming down sights and your shield activating, so you've got to ADS very early if you really need that shield up when you peek around a corner. Note that when your weapon reaches 0 rounds in magazine, the game does not forcibly auto-reload you. There may be situations where you push out and then you mag dump somebody, but you're out of position as soon as that magazine is empty. Knowing when to let go of that fire button so your weapon is left with 0 bullets in mag, but not reloading, is critical because it could mean the gun shield staying up will save your life when you'd otherwise get knocked down. The biggest advice I can give you as Gibraltar, though, is to always be aiming down your sights when you're in an engagement. It's of critical importance because you're so huge as this character, so easy to hit, that you need every shred of extra health you can come across. You need every last bit of it. Personally, it makes me very frustrated that I have to stay aiming down sights pretty much at all times just to have this shield up and activated. Makes the game feel very, very slow, makes the character feel very, very awkward, and as someone who uses a low sensitivity, like 15 inches per 360 at hip fire, it's a little nuts having to be aimed down sights all the time to keep this shield up. It's too much in my opinion. Now, it's no secret that I don't like this character very much, and I think they need a little bit of help in order to become viable at a high level. If I were to buff Gun Shield, I have a couple of ideas. First, I would enable the use of this ability even if you don't have a gun equipped. Simply press the aim down sights button and you have it up. Gun or not, that just makes sense to me. Second, I would remove the bright visibility from the Gun Shield and give it a faint shimmer instead. When it gets shot, have it flash briefly to indicate to the shooter that they're hitting the shield, but don't make it have Gibraltar stick out like a sore thumb. He's already huge as it is. He doesn't need to also be a lighthouse guiding bullets directly into his face. Third, and this is something that I don't say lightly, is that his shield might need a small durability boost. Not much, maybe enough just to tank one more bullet for most guns. Alternatively, have it cover his head, much like a Blackbeard gun shield from Rainbow Six Siege. This way, he at least has some form of protection against people with good aim, because right now, he doesn't. And it increases his shots to kill count by 1 pretty much across the board, which is at least something in terms of making him a little bit more playable. If he's not going to have more health or more armor or whatever than other legends, he has to have something else to make him just a little bit more survivable. The shield in its current state does not offer enough burst protection. Next, let's look at his dome shield. This ability is a lot more straightforward. You just drop it down and it's an impenetrable wall that surrounds your team. Be careful using it on hills or near edges because it doesn't create a full circle all the way underneath you that extends under the ground. So if you place it on a ledge, people can shoot up at you from underneath the dome if they have the correct angle. The same applies to hills as well, although it's maybe a little bit less noticeable, but it does still exist. The most apparent use of this ability is of course as a panic button, to save yourself from imminent death, to heal, or to revive a downed teammate. You can also use it while running, and just drop it down but run past it to give your team a quick piece of deployable cover to run away from enemies that are chasing you or sniping you down or whatever. This can just be a nice impenetrable wall you drop behind you. One of the coolest things about it though is that it pairs really interestingly with defensive bombardment, your ultimate ability. If you drop this ult right at your feet, wait a few moments, and then drop the shield right before the bombardment starts hitting, your dome shield will last the entire duration of the ultimate. This is pretty much a guaranteed revive, full heal, and full reload for your team, which only Wraith or Pathfinder can even attempt to do something about, and even then, it's probably not a good idea. While this ability is pretty decent, and can be used for some really cool strategies involving fast peeking in and out of the side of the dome, in order to play mind games with an opponent and try outshooting them, it's got issues. Chiefly, it's as much of a benefit to you as it is to enemies. It can actually be a pretty big detriment to your team when used poorly or just if you're unlucky. If an enemy team pushes your shield and they're running some good close range weapons, you are in for a world of hurt. If you get in a point blank fight with a Wraith running Peacekeeper while your two teammates are outside the dome, there's no winning for you. There's no survival. It's only death, as you get two shot over and over and over by Peacekeepers. Your hitbox is just so massive that it's impossible to win these scenarios. The best you can do is dance in and out of the bubble shield and try to prolong your survival as long as possible. Try to get your enemy to empty their magazine and force a reload, then you can fight back. But until then, you simply cannot damage a small hitbox in your shield as effectively as they can damage you inside your shield. My major complaint here is that this tactical ability is a reactive ability, much more so than it is a proactive one. It's really hard to use this thing offensively because you have to get so close to your opponents and then they can just use the shield as much as you can. Maybe there's something here if you really practice the legend a lot and have strong support from dedicated teammates, but I think that's asking way too much for the average player, especially for the solo player. Finally, we have defensive bombardment. This ability rules. It's easily the highest damage ultimate in the entire game, it's incredibly consistent, and makes really hard situations for your enemies. When caught perfectly, enemies are stuck in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation that'll force downs and kills you otherwise could never hope to get with other legends. This ultimate is far and away the selling point of Gibraltar, and there's really not enough positive things I can say about it. Toss it at a down person to either kill them or just prevent a revive for a solid 15 seconds. Toss it in a choke to prevent enemies from chasing you. Toss it near a downed teammate to prevent enemies from finishing them off. Whatever, just place it where you want big booms and things are gonna go your way. If you're not feeding a lifeline full of ultimate accelerants, Gibraltar is definitely the guy you want to have shoving them down his throat instead. All in all, on paper, Gibraltar sounds like an awesome legend, and he's really close to actually being that, but in the current metagame, and with his huge hitbox, the upsides of his abilities are simply not enough to justify choosing him over other, smaller legends. I believe that with some small rebalancing and the removal of about 50% of his current calorie intake, he could legitimately be a good legend, but in his current state, no matter how amazing his ult is, the rest of his kit lets him down, and I cannot thus recommend that you play him until he receives some rebalancing from Respawn. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you've learned something new. Let me know in the comments what you think about Gibraltar, and if you agree or disagree that my balance changes are good or bad, and if there's anything else you'd like to see modified about the legend. In pro-level scrims right now, Gibraltar, as far as I know, is all but unused, purely because of the size of his hitbox. So I'm interested to hear if everyone else has come to the same conclusion as well. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, I'll see you again soon. Take care.